Mississauga and Canada have shared similar paths, from its early beginnings through its growth to the modern land. The story of 1867 and Confederation is an old one. The dangers from abroad, the deadlock at home, the coalition ministry whose leaders had been bitter adversaries before its formation, and who joined together in the pursuit of a greater ambition and a common purpose. Then there were the three conferences, Charlottetown, Quebec, and London. Uncertainty in the Maritimes, pressure from the Canadas, and parliaments and provinces moving like pieces in a chess match. The names ring through Canadian history: Brown, Cartier, Cockburn, Galt, Howland, MacDonald, McDougall, McGee, Mowat, Tupper, amongst many others, fathers of Confederation all.
You might wonder, what was historic Mississauga like in the years leading up to Confederation? How did the people in this place feel about the idea of a grand union? Historic Mississauga, then known as Toronto Township, was not unlike other rural areas in Canada, albeit with our own stories, challenges, and people who helped to shape what was to come. Port Credit and Streetsville, our two largest villages, were in their early years of growth. Other places such as Clarkson, Cooksville, Arundel, Malton, Meadowvale, and many more were becoming established. Hamlets such as Burnhamthorpe, Hanlon, Mount Charles, Palestine, Puckyhuddle, Sheridan, and Somerville, amongst others, were well known on the landscape. But this place was young, its land still to be shaped from the wilderness. Families were building more permanent dwellings. This was quickly becoming a place to establish roots and build a permanent foothold on Canadian soil. This house was built by James and Emma Peer in 1867.
If we were to pursue a grand union, what kind of place would this country be? Residents of historic Mississauga faced the same challenges and questions as did others through the United Province of Canada. Did the Conservatives hold the answers? Should they follow Jim Hillard Cameron and William Pierce Howland's emerging support of John A. Macdonald's party? Or can the Reformers and Clear Grits under James Cox Atkins and George Brown do what they had so far failed to do and bring consensus on the path forward? It was a plan without consensus and without an apparent champion.
The concerns and pressures were real. Pressures from the United States, a long and undefended border, threats of invasion, which would be realized with the Fenian invasions in 1866, and uncertainty from abroad. The political situation was also in flux, with no clear majority or consensus, a house divided between English and French concerns. A stalemate lasting for years led to a quagmire. Very little was accomplished, with 8 elections between 1841 and 1863. Frustrated and seeking a path forward, reformer George Brown crossed the floor on June 24, 1864, joining the Conservatives led by John A. Macdonald and Georges-Étienne Cartier, forming the Great Coalition. Led by John A. Macdonald, the coalition sought out union with the Maritime provinces. Following conferences in Charlottetown, Quebec, and London, England, the United Province of Canada, Ontario and Quebec, joined with Nova Scotia and New Brunswick to form the Dominion of Canada in 1867.
It is hard to gauge what the feelings would have been like here at home in historic Mississauga towards the idea of Confederation. There seems to have been little said about the affairs in local newspapers, although there were some articles arguing against the Confederation in the Streetsville Review. However, in 1861, reformer James Cox Atkins, who represented this area, was defeated by John Hillard Cameron, a conservative and supporter of Confederation. Another local representative, William Pierce Howland, would also cross the floor and join the Conservative Party, later becoming a father of Confederation.
In 1927, the Dominion of Canada was 60 years old, and it was time to celebrate the country's accomplishments. According to the Port Credit News, Canada's landmass had grown since Confederation to equal 1/3 of the British Empire. Its population had tripled, and the country had prospered in every way. Men and women who had lived in Canada since 1867 were to be given a place of honor in parades and other events. School children had a prominent role since they were future citizens of what was to be an even greater Canada. In Port Credit, the Diamond Jubilee Committee planned an elaborate celebration for Friday, July 1st. Toronto Township held its Jubilee celebration in Cooksville on Saturday, July 2nd, with a school children's parade, followed by a flag raising and baseball, races, and football in the afternoon. From the local and seemingly quiet acceptance of Confederation in 1867, by 1927, historic Mississauga celebrated. Historic Mississauga had also grown since Confederation. Villages became towns. Population had increased dramatically after the First World War, and a new industrial businesses such as the Cooksville Brickyard and the St. Lawrence Starch Company had ushered in a new era of growth.
In 1967, Toronto Township was well on the road to incorporating as the town of Mississauga, which became official on January 1st, 1968. But 1967 saw the selection of the name itself. We could have been Sheridan, amongst many other possible names. By 1967, historic Mississauga was a booming suburban municipality, with town and city status mere years away. Our population had increased dramatically to over 140,000 people, with increases projected every year. Local industry was expanding, welcoming the likes of the Clarkson Oil Refinery, Texaco Refinery, St. Lawrence Cement, and Orenda Engines, amongst many other industrial and economic giants. The Malton Airport had become the Toronto International Airport, undergoing a large expansion, and highways like the 401 and the QEW snaked through the landscape. 1967 also saw the opening of our first recreational centre, Huron Park, as well as marking the centennial of Canadian Confederation. Toronto Township was not going to let the moment pass without commemoration.
Toronto Township put on a good show in 1967 to mark Canada's centennial. There was a centennial torch at the town square, Confederation caravans, a centennial soiree, a beauty pageant, parades, fairs, and the unveiling of an Ontario Heritage plaque honoring our father of Confederation, Sir William Pierce Howland. There were also special festivities hosted at the newest facility, Huron Park, that ran for 3 days. 1967 also saw the opening of our new museum, the Lewis Bradley Pioneer Museum, now the Bradley Museum.
In 2017, Canada marked the 150th anniversary of Confederation. Here in Mississauga, our Canada 150 festivities celebrated our rich cultural diversity and unique heritage, our exceptional parks, trails, and waterfront spaces, street banners, neighborhood block parties, public art installations, tree plantings, Canada Day fireworks across the city, and Canada's biggest birthday card.
Canada 150 was a tremendous opportunity to celebrate our country and our city. Together, we mark this important milestone of Confederation and the founding of our respected country. We reflected on our country's history and looked forward to the future. Mississauga has grown from farm fields and fruit trees into a vibrant, prosperous, and thriving place where people want to live. Looking back over the past 150 years, Mississauga and Canada have come a long way, and we have much to be thankful for. Truly something to be proud of and to celebrate.